This guy was giving game today, and there's a story I should have told you guys a long time ago, but it happened such a long time ago, and I didn't remember it until the guy was giving game, and it sparked my memory. So now I'm going to tell you guys the story. All right. So the guy giving game was basically saying some guys will purposely delay spending time with you or texting you back in a timely manner, calling you in a timely manner because they want to emotionally dysregulate you. All right. Now, that seems petty, seems stupid, but they will do it if they sense a power imbalance. All right. It seems, it seems like a bunch of nonsense, but they feel like if you have the advantage in the relationship, they will do that. They want to get you emotionally dysregulated. They want you to start, they basically want to humble you. They want you to start doubting that they really like you, or they want you to start doubting your worth. They're trying to level the playing field. So back when I was 18, just newly 18, barely 18, I was in this relationship with this bozo who was 5 years older than me. All right, now I wasn't the most streetwise person in the world. My mind wasn't through forming, and so I wasn't streetwise, but I was unbothered. And it's almost like you don't have to be the smartest person in the world. You don't have to be the most mature person in the world, but you hold all the cards if you are unbothered. So I had the distinct advantage. Um, I had this boyfriend, and he was a bozo, and he was always breathing down my neck. And in the back of my mind, I just wanted to get rid of him. I wanted to break up with him, but I really couldn't figure out how to do it. But I wasn't really into him. I was really going out with him because I missed a boyfriend I had to break up with. So that's really why I was going out with him. I was just going out with him just to it was like a rebound relationship. And I've talked about this guy before, I'm pretty sure. So, because he was probably the biggest bozo in my life. So I'm sure I've made an example of him before. So on with the story. So I didn't see him for, let's say, and I don't remember exactly how long it was, but it was a lengthy enough amount of time that would make somebody uncomfortable in a relationship. Like, he went maybe, let's just call it 3 days, where there was like no phone call, there was no visit, there was no communication whatsoever. And this was back in the days before cell phones, because this was in the 80s. Okay, so what he would do is he would show up at my house every day. And he would just constantly breathe down my neck every time I wasn't at work or whatever. He was always around, and he just wouldn't. He was just really clingy. He wouldn't really give me any space, any room to just breathe, right? So what happened was, when he gave me all that space, I was just so happy. I'm very self-contained. I don't need to be entertained, all right? I really will find, if you leave me alone, I will find things to do. I will find a project. I'm very creative. I will find something to do. So what I did was I cleaned my entire room, redecorated it, found all kinds of projects to do. I'm a writer. I'm sure I did a lot of writing. I'm sure I went to work. I had a full-time job at the time. I had some responsibilities, some adult responsibilities, although I was an adult, but I still, I still, kind of had the mind of a child. I was trying to be a grown up. So I just kept myself busy, basically. So he shows up, and I think the time period was 3 days. I don't remember exactly what it was, but by the time he did show up again, he was crashing out really hard. I mean, he was freaked out. And I think in the back of my mind I was just thinking, wow, it sure is nice to get away from him. Maybe he met someone else. Maybe this is it. Maybe he's moved on, and I think in the back of my mind I was kind of hoping he did. Maybe this relationship is naturally fizzling out, and it's now maybe he's just gonna back off and go his own way, and he's done, and I was just kind of like, maybe we could just be friends, and maybe he's just kind of moving on, and I think I was kind of hoping that was happening. So he shows up at my door, and I open the door, and there he is, and he looks really panicked. And I was like, "Oh, hi." And I was just like all casual and everything like that. And he's like, and he looked really distressed. And I want everybody to know he was not having any kind of panic attack or posing any dangerous threat or anything like this. This is funny. This is not anything where I felt like I was in danger or he was going to have any kind of medical emergency. So this was actually funny. He comes in and he goes, "What have you been doing for the past 3 days?" And I go, "Oh, I went to work. I cleaned my room. I did this. I did that. Blah, 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 blah." And I said, "I've just been having the best time and just getting a whole lot done and blah, 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 blah." I go, "What have you been doing?" And he goes, "Nothing," and he starts pacing back and forth, and he's just crashing out. And you could just see him sweating, and he was just really freaked out, and I was just kind of like, why is he tripping? And I was just kind of like, okay, I think you need to calm down, and so he runs into my room. And first of all, my parents had this rule, okay? No opposite sex friends in our rooms. Okay? They were old school. We were not to have opposite sex friends in our rooms. So he runs into my room, and I yelled, "You can't be in there." Well, he thought I had a guy in my room. So he found a paper crane that was in my room, and it was a paper crane that I've had since the year before when I was in high school. And my ex-boyfriend gave it to me, and he wrote, "I love you," and then he folded it up into a paper crane. Well, I just set it out as a decoration. Well, he unfolded it, and the note said, "I love you." And he goes, "What is this?" And he was all freaked out. I go, "Oh, my ex-boyfriend from high school gave that to me." And I said, "Fold it back up." I go, "I'm using it as a decoration." And he's just like freaking out. I go, "Now you messed it up. Now I can't fold it back up. I don't know how to do origami. Like, why did you do that?" I go, "You weren't supposed to be in my room." I go, "I really, I really don't appreciate that. This is a boundary thing." And he was just freaking out. And I was really naive at the time. I didn't realize what was going on, and I didn't really think about it until the guy who was giving the game was giving the game. Because what was going on was he was trying to test me. He was trying to, obviously I had all the power in the relationship. Obviously he wanted to be with me a lot more than I wanted to be with him. I was low-key trying to get rid of him. He was trying to test me. He was trying to get me to come to his house, trying to get me to call him, trying to get me to do something, trying to get me to panic. And I was just glad he was out of my hair. And so he had these relatives who were always trying to teach him how to humble me and do all these things. And now that I look back on it, and it would never work, because I would always call him on it, or I was always so unbothered. Like it never really bothered me. And it would always he would always just be practically tearing his hair out because it would never work. And now that I'm looking back on it, that I'm, this so far into the future, it's like I realized what was actually going on. And I wish I would have known what he was trying to do. And so the point of the story is you don't have to know what somebody's doing. You just have to not care. So I hope that helps somebody. Remember, you have to not care. When people do things like that, you have to not care. And when that guy gave the game today, I realized what was going on and why he was so freaked out. And I wished I would have been more streetwise back then. I wish I would have seen that as the opportunity that it was to break up with him. I wish I would have seen, I mean, he was obviously freaking out because his little plan didn't work. I could have broken up with him then because that was definitely a deal breaker, that he was trying to run some game on me, and I could have gotten rid of him then, but I just wasn't smart enough to do it. So too bad. He stayed around longer than he should have, but in hindsight, I guess I guess I had to stay with him longer until I figured out how to get rid of him. But just you just have to be unbothered, okay? Be unbothered. So that's my little lesson for today. Bye-bye.